Classic literature is defined as the literature of any language in a period notable for the excellence and enduring quality of its writer's work. Some classics include Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Books that could be considered modern classics involve the Harry Potter series, The Hunger Games, and Twilight. However, these series were completed after 2010. In the last 10 years, has there been any books that have made the same impact as these? Why is this? And are we watching the death of modern literature? TikTok skyrocketed to popularity during 2020, overtaking Instagram and Snapchat as the most used social media platform. Along with its new popularity came new waves of trends and subspaces, one of these being booktok. Booktok is the name for the niche book reading community that formed on TikTok, where readers from all over the world could review, theorize, and recommend their favorite books and genres. There is a high number of women and teenagers who post videos to the booktok community, usually talking about the genres of romance, young adult fantasy, and young adult fiction. The origins of booktok are vague. However, in August of 2020, a teenage girl with the handle Kate's Library posted a series of quotes from the books she was reading titled "Quotes that say I love you without actually saying I love you." This marked the beginning of a new age of recommended books, which fitted the short-form content that TikTok had. Snappy takes on literature, talking about the experience of reading, or videos that seem fun seem to do the best, with titles like books where the main character was sent to kill someone and they end up falling in love. These posts attracted millions of views and sometimes ended up rekindling the appreciation of books for young readers. BookTok has some major influence on how well a book does. For example, TikTok users were filming themselves before and after reading Adam Silvera's 2017 book They Both Die at the End, which shot the book to the top of the teen fiction charts, selling more than 4,000 copies in a week. But what is a trope? The term has been changed over the years. Originally, it applied to figurative language, like hyperboles, metaphors, synecdoches. While these features still appear in writing and speech today, they no longer align with the modern definition of a trope. These days, a trope refers to a narrative technique or genre convention that writers employ to convey information to the audience in an efficient manner. These can be recognized through character archetypes, visual cues, or plot patterns. A few character archetypes can be labeled as the common person/everyman, the hero, or the lover. Plot patterns usually fall into one of 7 basic plots: overcoming the monster, rags to riches, the quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, and rebirth. While these are more standard and overarching tropes, they can get a lot more specific, like love triangle, enemies to lovers, love at first sight, exotic location, military exploits, bad guys who can't aim, and set in colonial America, just to name a few. With BookTok gaining popularity and more books being noticed, it became common that recommendations were less about the books and more about the different tropes. This type of recommendation and advertisement bled into other platforms. Instagram has many book trope recommendations, such as Better Run by Alina May is advertised as a fast-paced, dark romance stalker trope with primal and blood play. A second example would be fake relationship romance recommendations with 15 books like Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, Fly With Me by Andy Burke, and The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. A final example would be books labeled as second chance romance recommendations, but with a few more tropes attached to them. Beautiful Lies has the tropes of emotional and broken male main character. All of these examples have no other context, no blurb, no brief plot explanation, just the tropes on a visually appealing post, which leads into the main issue this type of recommendation and advertising has brought about: the aestheticism of reading. The problem with the aestheticism of reading is that it's become more about romanticizing books by fixating on the tropes or emotions felt, rather than the plot itself. An example of this is The Poppy War by Rebecca F. Young, which is a science fiction fantasy set in ancient China. It analyzes the themes of the atrocities of war and the repercussions it has on future children, and the West's imperialistic views and colonialism. But BookTok has marketed it as an academic rivals to lovers story. This problem is so common over multiple platforms that a Twitter user @_TheBlackBride made a mockery image that explains the tropes of Game of Thrones: weddings gone wrong, arranged cousin marriages, siblings to lovers, misogyny, and slow burning people alive. Another post by the book named Torn by Kieran Cole was labeled as a forbidden romance, until the readers read the blurb and found that the main character was freshly 18, entering a romance with someone who was 15 years older than her, who had been described as her pseudo-uncle who she had known since she was 5. Posts like this is what highlighted that some writing is less about the plot and more about how many tropes can be fit into it. Reddit user WinterWidow1 expresses that this tropification goes hand in hand with the aestheticism of books. Young authors trying to advertise their whips by using buzzword about aesthetics, e.g. cottagecore, dark academia, goth fantasy, and tropes, academic rivals to lovers, brother's best friend. So has the aestheticism of books affected the industry and writers too? In the same thread, at WinterWillow1 continued, authors are so aware of the fact that the readers want specific book tropes, that their writing becomes clunky and unfocused because they are so desperate to shoehorn these tropes in because they sell more. Which may seem like a senseless accusation at first, but this isn't entirely wrong. Ali Hazelwood, a New York Times bestseller with her debut book, The Love Hypothesis, was preparing for the release of her second novel when she did an interview. Hazelwood started out writing in fanfiction, and The Love Hypothesis was originally about Rey and Kylo Ren from the Star Wars franchise, until she rewrote it for publishing. So she considered her second book the first that she'd written from scratch. However, Hazelwood went on to say, "My agent guided me a lot. She was like, I would love to read an academic rivals to lovers story, and gave me a bunch of tropes that she wanted me to build a story around." Her admitting this caused a lot of backlash from fellow authors. Twitter user author Emily G said, "After querying 2 novels over 2 years and constantly trying to level up my craft, seeing an author with tables full of books at Barnes & Nobles be like, lol, don't know what I'm doing. I just string together a list of tropes my agent feeds me. Makes me want to jump off a bridge, actually." While someone replying to this said, "Ali Hazelwood has been writing fanfiction for a while, so I think she was just trying to be modest, honestly. I think her agent just tells her what's popular and what would sell." While this explanation was attempting to defend Hazelwood, the opposite comes across when considering the way the industry now works. Agents are telling authors what to write to become popular and would sell, instead of writing a story to tell. This kind of writing, especially when an author sticks with the same tropes, can come across as talented while also being lazy. Ali Hazelwood starting in fanfiction is not a unique phenomenon. In fact, some of the best-selling books were originally fanfiction. 50 Shades of Grey was originally about Twilight, and the After series was based on a Harry Styles fanfiction. Something that popped up frequently while researching was how the tropification of books felt similar to how fanfiction is consumed. On a Reddit thread started by KG Photography, Myra97V said, "As an avid fanfic reader, the tags are often the most important things. If I see something akin to found family, I'm already rubbing my hands together in anticipation. But in fiction, it's much harder because found family only tells you so much." They continued, "Adding tropes can add to the summary, but shouldn't replace it. You read your books for the story. The tropes are just a nice bonus." User Dapper Pony added, "I wonder how much of this can be accredited to AO3. So what is AO3, and how has this affected BookTok? Archive of Our Own, more commonly known as AO3, is a non-profit organization established by the fans back in 2007. AO3 was built to serve the interests of fans by providing access to and preserving the history of fan works and fan culture in its myriad forms. As well as its promise to keep fan work safe, AO3 is famous for its tagging system. The tagging system is unique and complex, and it allows users to create and apply tags to their fan work. This tagging system allows users to filter what they want to read from fandom, characters, relationships, and additional tags, aka which tropes you want. AO3 has risen in popularity over the years, growing from 206 users in March 2009 to 6,817,000 users in March 2024. It's no wonder that BookTok ended up unintentionally adopting the tagging system, and now a large volume of readers are looking for books that might not exist. Ali Hazelwood is not the only fanfiction writer turned pro. There are a few more examples of authors who made the transition much smoother. LL McKinney, Tara Sim, Christina Lauren, Marissa Meyer, TJ Clue, and Emma Lord are 6 authors who did an interview with the young folk about their experience with fanfiction and moving to published novels. Writing fanfiction taught them a lot of skills, like developing characters that people love and maintaining believability. You learn to structure your chapters so they have a definitive beginning, middle, and end, usually with some sort of cliffhanger so the reader wants to come back. And mainly, it gives newbie authors a chance to stretch their wings, usually in a safe space. They admit that certain tropes such as enemies to lovers, one bed, and secret identity tropes still hold influence over them. One of the main differences between these authors and Ali Hazelwood is that they consider fanfiction days Fiction Writing 101, or Writer's Bootcamp, a place where they could learn and develop their own skills while not taking yourself too seriously, which contrasts what Ali Hazelwood implies, which is that she hasn't learned writing skills from fanfiction. Has the internet's obsession with tropes affected the current literature world? At present moment, no. But will it? Absolutely. However, this can be both a good and a bad thing. Knowing the tropes beforehand can be a good thing, like forming a trigger warning list for new readers. For example, The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic has a trigger warning list of 24 different tropes, which I think is a really great thing, since trigger and content warnings are an important part of any media consumption. However, if the growing increase of trope-based promotion doesn't slow down or stop entirely, then this will have a detriment on the publishing industry for writers. Publishing books without an audience reduces sales per book, making the field more competitive. This has resulted in less time and effort put into each book because the rewards are fewer, and in turn, quality has decreased.